My name is Emily Hartman. I'm 52 years old now, but the story I'm about to tell you began when I was just a child in Burlington, Vermont. Back then, I didn't understand what legacy meant. I didn't know that in some families, love isn't given freely. It's earned, measured, and sometimes withheld entirely based on standards you never agreed to follow. My parents, Margaret and Daniel Hartman, were meticulous people. Everything in our home had its place. Every conversation had its purpose. My father was a commercial real estate developer who treated life like a negotiation, and my mother was a former accountant who believed emotions were liabilities on a balance sheet. Together, they built an empire of rental properties and investment portfolios that spanned 3 states. And together, they decided which of their children deserved to inherit it. My older brother Caleb was their golden child from the moment he took his first breath. He was the kid who could recite multiplication tables at 5 years old, who negotiated his allowance at 8, who sat through business dinners without fidgeting, and asked questions that made my father beam with pride. Caleb understood numbers the way I understood colors and shadows. He spoke their language fluently, and I never could. I was different. I preferred my sketchbooks to spreadsheets, long walks by Lake Champlain, to boardroom discussions. I asked questions about why people felt things instead of why markets moved. My mother would sigh whenever I brought home an art project instead of a perfect math test. My father would look at me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve and didn't particularly want to when I was 9 years old. Something happened that I didn't fully understand until decades later. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October, and I'd come home early from school because of a teacher workshop day. The house was quiet except for the sound of my father's voice coming from his study. A room I'd been told countless times was off limits, but I was 9 and curious, and I could hear drawers opening and closing with an urgency that made me wonder what he was doing. I pushed the door open just a crack. My father was kneeling beside a small fireproof safe I'd never noticed before, tucked beneath his mahogany desk. He was placing documents inside, his hands moving quickly, almost frantically. Before I could even form a question, his head whipped around and his eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my stomach drop. "Emily," he barked, slamming the safe door shut so hard it echoed through the room. "You stay out of this room, do you understand me?" I nodded, frozen in the doorway, my heart pounding against my ribs. I'd seen my father angry before, but this was different. This was fear disguised as fury. My mother appeared behind him like a shadow, her voice a sharp whisper that somehow carried more weight than a shout. "God, Daniel. She's always in the wrong place at the wrong time." From the hallway, I could see Caleb leaning against the wall, arms crossed, that familiar smirk on his face. "She's curious, Mom," he said with false sympathy. "Curious kids cause problems." I ran to my room and didn't come out until dinner. Nobody mentioned what had happened. My father carved the roast in silence. My mother asked Caleb about his science project. I pushed peas around my plate and wondered what I'd done wrong this time. That night, I couldn't sleep. My room was directly above my father's study, and the old house carried sound through the heating vents like whispers through a tunnel. I pressed my ear to the floor and listened. "She's not suitable for long-term plans," my father was saying, his voice tight with something I couldn't name. "She's too emotional," my mother replied. "Too unpredictable. We'll need to adjust everything before she's 18. 18. The word hung in the air like smoke. Adjust what? What happened when you turned 18? I knew it meant becoming an adult, being able to vote, maybe going to college. But why did my parents need to adjust anything? Why did my age matter to whatever was in that safe? I pulled my blanket up to my chin and stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of adult conversations that felt like coded messages. Caleb's room was down the hall, and I could see the light under his door. Could hear the faint sound of his calculator clicking as he worked on whatever advanced math problem he'd assigned himself. He was 13 then, already taking high school courses. Already being groomed for something I wasn't invited to understand. Sleep came eventually, but the questions didn't leave. They settled into my bones, became part of the background noise of my childhood. The safe, the whispers, the way my parents looked at me like I was a problem that needed solving. I didn't know it then, but that safe contained the first draft of a will, one that didn't include my name at all, and I wouldn't discover that truth until the night of my 18th birthday, when everything I thought I knew about my family would shatter like glass. By the time I hit middle school, the divide between Caleb and me had become a canyon I could no longer pretend didn't exist. He was 14, already taking classes at the community college on weekends, already being introduced to my father's business associates as the future of Hartman Properties. He wore button-down shirts to family dinners and spoke about market projections like other kids talked about video games. Caleb was a local star, debate champion 2 years running, student council president. The kid teachers pointed to when they wanted to show parents what success looked like. Our house was filled with his trophies, his certificates, his newspaper clippings. My mother kept a leather scrapbook dedicated entirely to his achievements, updating it religiously after every award ceremony, every academic honor. I had my own accomplishments, but they lived in a different category entirely. In 8th grade, I won a statewide art contest with a watercolor piece I'd titled Thaw. It showed Lake Champlain in early spring, ice breaking apart, light filtering through the cracks. I'd worked on it for 3 months, mixing colors until my fingers were stained, studying the way water reflected sky during different times of day. When the letter came saying I'd won first place out of over 800 entries, I ran home with the certificate clutched in my hands, my heart soaring. My mother was in the kitchen, going through investment statements with reading glasses perched on her nose. I laid the certificate on the table in front of her, breathless and grinning. She glanced at it for maybe 3 seconds. Then she looked back at her papers and said, "Emily, you know this won't help you in life. Not congratulations. Not even a smile. Just a dismissal so casual it felt like being erased." My father didn't even look at it when he came home. Caleb made a joke about starving artists that made my parents laugh. I took my certificate upstairs and hid it in a drawer beneath clothes. I'd outgrown, and I didn't paint anything for 6 months after that. That same year, during Thanksgiving dinner at our house, I was helping clear dishes when I heard Aunt Shirley's voice drop to a whisper in the dining room. I froze in the doorway, hidden by the angle of the wall, a stack of plates growing cold in my hands. "It's wrong what they're doing," Aunt Shirley was saying to Uncle Mike, my mother's younger brother. Her voice was tight with anger. "She should know. That girl should know. Shirley, stop." Uncle Mike's voice was low, urgent. I saw his eyes dart toward the living room where my parents were sitting with coffee. "It's not our business. Margaret made her choice. She's a child, Mike. A child who doesn't." I said stop. The conversation ended there, cut off like a cord being snipped. I retreated to the kitchen, my pulse hammering in my ears, those dishes rattling in my trembling hands. No, what? What should I know? I wanted to march back in there and demand answers, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the fear in Uncle Mike's eyes. Maybe it was the way Aunt Shirley had said "that girl," like I was someone to be pitied. I started paying more attention after that. Not obvious attention, not the kind that would get me yelled at for snooping, but I noticed things. The way my parents would stop talking when I entered a room, the way certain phone calls were taken behind closed doors, the way my father's lawyer, Mr. Green, would visit the house every few months and they'd all disappear into the study for hours. When I turned 15, I was looking for extra blankets in the hall closet. The big one with the cedar lining where my mother stored linens she never used. I was pulling down a stack of vintage quilts when something fell from between them and landed at my feet with a soft thud. A yellow envelope, legal size. Thick paper, my name was written across the front in my father's handwriting, but it wasn't addressed to me. It said, "To Attorney Samuel Green Private Review." My hands shook as I picked it up. The envelope wasn't sealed, just tucked closed. I looked over my shoulder, listened for footsteps. The house was quiet. My parents were both at work. Caleb was at a college prep seminar. I was alone. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed on official letterhead from Green & Associates law firm. Most of it was legal jargon I couldn't decipher. Words like fiduciary and contingent beneficiary that meant nothing to my 15-year-old brain. But the header was clear enough. Preliminary Guardianship and Asset Transition Plan, Emily Hartman. My eyes scanned down, trying to make sense of it. And then I saw it. One line buried in the middle of a paragraph that made my blood turn cold. Subject deemed emotionally volatile. Recommend limited access to estate until maturity can be established, if applicable. Emotionally volatile. Limited access to estate. I read it again. Then again, subject. They were calling me subject like I was part of an experiment. Emotionally volatile. Like I was unstable. Like I was broken. And what estate? What were they limiting my access to? At the bottom of the page, beneath all the legal language, were 2 signatures. One was Samuel Green's, dated from 2 months prior. The other was my mother's, her handwriting unmistakable, that sharp, efficient script she used on checks and tax documents. My mother had signed a document calling me emotionally volatile. My mother had recommended I be given limited access to something I didn't even know existed. My mother had done this when I was still just a kid. Before I'd even started high school, I stood there in that hallway for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The paper trembling in my hands, my mind racing through every interaction I'd ever had with my parents, trying to understand what I'd done to deserve this. Was it because I cried when our dog died? Because I got upset when kids at school were cruel? Because I felt things deeply and didn't know how to hide it? The front door opened downstairs. My mother's voice called out, "Emily, are you home?" I shoved the paper back into the envelope, tucked it exactly where I'd found it between those quilts, grabbed a random blanket, and closed the closet door. My heart was slamming against my ribs so hard I thought she'd hear it from downstairs. Coming. I called, my voice somehow steady. I went downstairs with that blanket in my arms, smiled at my mother, asked her about her day, and I didn't tell a soul what I'd found. Not my friends, not my teachers. Not Aunt Shirley, who'd said I should know, because that signature at the bottom was my mother's, and if my own mother thought I was too volatile, too emotional, too broken to be trusted with whatever legacy my family had built, then maybe she was right. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I'd always been the problem, but that envelope lived in my mind from that day forward. A constant whisper reminding me that I was being evaluated, judged, found wanting, and I had 3 years until I turned 18. 3 years until whatever they were planning would be adjusted, finalized, put into motion. I just didn't know how bad it would actually be. At 17, the weight of being the family disappointment had settled into my bones, like an old ache I'd learned to live with. I'd stopped trying to impress them, stopped bringing home art projects or awards. I kept my head down, counted the days until graduation, and tried to figure out who Emily Hartman was supposed to be when she wasn't being compared to Caleb. My friend Jenna. Parker was different from me in every way that mattered to my parents. Her family was what my mother called comfortable but not ambitious. Her father was a high school principal, her mother a nurse. They lived in a modest colonial on the east side of town. The kind of house my father would never invest in because the profit margins were too slim. But Jenna's parents were kind, the type who asked how I was doing and actually waited for an answer in late April. Jenna invited me to her family's scholarship banquet. Her older sister had established a fund for first-generation college students, and they were honoring the recipients at a dinner at the Hilton downtown. Jenna thought it would be good for me to see what real family pride looked like, though she never said it quite that way. I asked my mother if I could go. She was in her office, glasses on, reviewing property tax assessments. She didn't even look up. "You'll embarrass yourself," she said flatly. "Stay home." "Mom, it's just a dinner." Jenna's family invited me personally. The Parkers are not our kind of people, Emily, and you have a tendency to say inappropriate things in social settings. What does that even mean? Now she looked up, her eyes cold behind those lenses. "It means you wear your heart on your sleeve and it makes people uncomfortable. Stay home." That night, after my parents went to bed, I snuck out. I climbed out my window onto the porch roof, dropped down to the lawn, and walked the 8 blocks to Jenna's house, where her mother picked me up with a warm hug and told me I looked beautiful. I'd worn a red dress I'd bought with money from my summer job at the bookstore. Something simple but elegant that made me feel like someone other than the Hartman family failure. The banquet was lovely. Jenna's sister gave a speech that made everyone cry happy tears. Students stood up and thanked donors who'd believed in them. There was laughter, applause, the kind of genuine warmth that never existed at my family's stiff business dinners. And then, I saw Judge Henry Wilcox across the room. He was a longtime friend of my parents, someone who'd been at our house for holidays, someone my father golfed with and my mother served on charity boards alongside. He was standing near the dessert table when his eyes landed on me, and I watched his expression shift from pleasant recognition to something else, confusion, maybe concern. He walked over, his wife trailing behind him. "Emily Hartman," he said, and there was something odd in his voice. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Hi, Judge Wilcox. I came with my friend Jenna." He looked me up and down, not in a creepy way, but like he was assessing something, calculating. Then he murmured almost to himself, "She's older than I expected. Margaret said she was behind." Behind? The word hit me like a slap. Behind what? Behind in school? Behind in development? What had my mother told this man about me? "I'm sorry," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, nothing, dear," Mrs. Wilcox interjected quickly, shooting her husband a look. "You look lovely tonight. That color suits you." But Judge Wilcox was still staring at me with that strange expression, like I'd disrupted something, like my presence here was a problem he needed to solve. He excused himself abruptly, and I saw him step into the hallway, pulling out his phone. My stomach twisted. I knew, somehow, that he was calling my parents. Jenna's mom drove me home at 10:30. I thanked her, told her I'd had a wonderful time, and walked up to my dark house with my heart pounding. I climbed back onto the porch roof, reached for my window. "Come in through the front door, Emily," my mother's voice, cold and clear in the darkness. She was sitting in the living room with all the lights off except one lamp, creating shadows that made her face look carved from stone. She wasn't angry in the loud way, the yelling way. "That would have been easier somehow. Sit," she said. I sat. Judge Wilcox called. He was quite surprised to see you at that banquet, looking so put together, so capable. I don't understand why that's a problem. You have no idea what you've jeopardized tonight." Her voice was ice. "We have spent years carefully managing perceptions. Emily, years. And you parade yourself around town in a red dress, like you're someone who matters." The words stung more than I wanted to admit. "I am someone who matters." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Your 18th is coming. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "Harder for who? What happens when I turn 18? She stood up, smoothed her skirt, and looked down at me with something that might have been pity if it had been coming from anyone else. "You'll understand soon enough. Go to bed." I went upstairs, that red dress suddenly feeling like a costume, like I'd been playing pretend at being a normal girl with a normal life. I didn't know yet that my mother wasn't talking about my birthday party or some coming-of-age milestone. She was talking about a deadline, one the family had been preparing for since I was born. One that would determine not just my future, but whether I'd have any claim to the family I'd been born into at all. 3 weeks later, my 18th birthday arrived on a Tuesday in May. There was no party, no friends invited, no cake from the bakery I loved downtown, just a private family dinner. My mother announced that morning. The four of us, intimate she called it. I knew something was wrong the moment I came downstairs that evening. My father was wearing a suit, the kind he wore for important business meetings. My mother had on her pearls, the ones she saved for signing major contracts. Caleb, now 22 and working at my father's firm, was dressed like he was about to give a presentation to investors, and I was wearing jeans and a sweater because nobody had told me this was formal. "Emily," my mother said tightly, "go change into something appropriate." "Appropriate for what? Just do it." I changed into a dress, came back down. The dining room table was set with our fine china, candles lit, everything perfect and cold and wrong. We sat. We ate in near silence. Roasted chicken, asparagus, potatoes, everything tasted like cardboard in my mouth. Halfway through dessert, my father set down his fork and cleared his throat. "We finalized something important today," he announced. My mother pulled out a long white folder from the chair beside her, the kind lawyers use for official documents. Caleb was watching me with barely contained excitement, like he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. "This is the revised will," my mother said, her voice completely emotionless, like she was reading quarterly earnings. "It reflects the family's best interests moving forward." My stomach dropped. The room felt suddenly airless. "Emily," she continued, not meeting my eyes, "we've made provisions for your education. There's a fund set aside for a state school. Nothing extravagant. But the estate, the house, the land, the business, all properties and investments will go to Caleb upon our passing." My fork hit the plate with a clatter that seemed deafening. "Why?" The word came out as barely a whisper. My father folded his hands on the table, assuming his negotiation posture. "You're not suited for responsibility, Emily. You're too soft, too emotional. The business requires a certain fortitude you simply don't possess. I'm 18 years old and you've never even given me a chance to. We've given you 18 years of chances." My mother interrupted. "And you've demonstrated repeatedly that you're not capable of handling what this family has built." Caleb leaned forward, that familiar smirk on his face. "You should be grateful, Em. They're protecting you from yourself. Imagine the stress of managing all this. You'd crumble." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not my brother, but a stranger who'd been waiting his whole life to watch me lose. "This is my birthday," I said, my voice shaking. "You're doing this on my birthday? We're doing this on your 18th birthday because legally you're now an adult," my father explained, like he was teaching a particularly slow child. "The previous will had you listed as a co-beneficiary with Caleb. That's been amended. It's done." But then my mother said something that changed everything. She leaned back in her chair, took a sip of wine, and said it so casually, like she was commenting on the weather. "You were never meant to inherit anything. Emily, you were meant to stay out of the way." The words hung in the air like poison gas. Never meant to inherit anything. Never meant. Like my existence had been a mistake that needed correcting. Like I'd been born to be erased. Something inside me, something that had been bending for 18 years, finally snapped. I stood up from that table, looked at my parents and my brother, at their satisfied faces, and their legal documents, and their carefully planned future that didn't include me, and I decided right then if they wanted me out of the way, if they'd spent my entire life planning my erasure, then I'd take everything they feared losing. I'd make them understand what a mistake felt like when it fought back. I just smiled, said thank you for dinner, and went upstairs, because I'd learned something they didn't know I knew. Something I'd discovered 2 months earlier when I'd finally worked up the courage to dig deeper into that hall closet, to find more envelopes, more documents they'd hidden poorly. I knew about the house. The one property my grandmother had left specifically to me in her will before she died? The one my parents had been managing on my behalf since I was 6? The lakefront property worth over $2 million that they'd convinced me didn't exist, that they'd been collecting rent on for 12 years, and tomorrow morning, I was calling the one person who could help me claim what was actually mine. My lawyer. 2 months after my 18th birthday, I became someone I didn't recognize. Someone calculating. Someone patient. Someone willing to wait for the perfect moment to strike back. I'd spent those 2 months playing the role they expected. The quiet, defeated daughter who'd accepted her place. I smiled at dinner. I didn't argue. I even congratulated Caleb when my father announced he'd be making him a junior partner in the firm. I watched my mother update her will folder with additional documents. Watched her lock it back in that safe in my father's study, and I said nothing because I was waiting in early July. My parents announced they'd be attending a weekend business retreat in Boston, some real estate development conference my father never missed. They'd leave Friday morning, return Sunday evening. Caleb was going with them, eager to network. To prove himself worthy of the empire he'd just inherited, the house would be empty except for me. Friday morning, I waved goodbye from the front porch, watched their car disappear down the tree-lined street. Then I went inside, walked straight to my father's study, and stood in front of that safe I'd been forbidden to touch for 18 years. I knew the combination. I'd watched my father open it dozens of times when he thought I wasn't paying attention, had memorized the sequence of numbers he never thought to hide. 4 turns right to 17. 3 left 232. 2 right to 9. My mother's birthday backwards. The safe opened with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the silent house. Inside were stacks of documents, property deeds, investment portfolios, insurance policies, and there, in a pristine white folder labeled Hartman Estate Plan Revised 2024, was the will they presented at my birthday dinner. I pulled everything out with shaking hands and spread it across my father's desk. I wasn't stupid. I'd learned something from 18 years of being underestimated. I photographed every single page with my phone, uploaded them to a cloud account they didn't know existed, and made sure the timestamps were clear. Then I started reading. It took me an hour to get through the legal language, but the picture became crystal clear. Everything: the Vermont properties, the rental portfolio in New Hampshire, the commercial buildings in Maine, the investment accounts. The business itself was going to Caleb. I got a trust fund for state college tuition and $10,000 upon my 25th birthday, if deemed financially responsible by the trustee. The trustee was my father. $10,000. That's what my parents thought I was worth. But then I found something else, tucked in the back of the folder, something that made my blood run cold and hot at the same time. A document titled Hartman Trust Amendment Property Transfer Authorization, dated from when I was 6 years old. It detailed how my grandmother's lakefront house, the one she'd left specifically to me in her will before she died of cancer, had been placed under my parents' management until I turned 18. The document showed 12 years of rental income over $400,000 that should have been held in trust for me. But there was no trust account listed. No separate fund. The money had been absorbed into the family's general operating account. My inheritance had been spent on Caleb's private schools, on business expansions, on the lifestyle my parents had built while telling me. I was too emotional to be trusted with responsibility. They'd stolen from me. For 12 years, they'd stolen from a child. I sat in that leather chair, in that study I'd been banned from, and I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Anger was too small a word. This was clarity. This was understanding that I'd been born into a family that viewed me as a problem to be managed, an asset to be liquidated, a mistake to be quietly erased. I picked up my phone and called the one person my parents had forgotten existed. Attorney William Crane had been my grandmother's lawyer for 30 years. He'd handled her estate, executed her will, and had looked genuinely sad at her funeral when I was 6. He'd sent me a card on my 16th birthday with a note that said, "Your grandmother would be so proud of the person you're becoming." My mother had thrown it away, but I'd retrieved it from the trash and kept it hidden in my journal. He answered on the second ring. "Mr. Crane, this is Emily Hartman, Margaret and Daniel's daughter. I don't know if you remember me, but Emily," his voice was warm, surprised. "Of course I remember you. You look just like your grandmother. How are you, sweetheart?" Something about the kindness in his voice almost broke me. "I need help. Legal help. Can you come to my house today?" There was a pause. "Are you in danger?" "Not physically, but I found something. Documents. About my inheritance. About what my parents have been doing. I'll be there in 40 minutes. He arrived in 35, a tall man in his late 60s with kind eyes and a leather briefcase that had seen better days. I let him in, led him to my father's study, and showed him everything he read in silence. For 20 minutes, his expression growing darker with each page. When he finally looked up at me, there was anger in his eyes, but it wasn't directed at me. "Emily," he said carefully, "they illegally altered your inheritance. Your grandmother's will was explicit. That property was yours, to be held in trust with the income reinvested until you turned 18. What they've done here," he tapped the documents. "This is misappropriation of trust assets. Possibly fraud." My heart was thundering so hard I could barely hear my own voice. "What can I do? We can file a lawsuit. It will take time, probably years. It will be expensive, and it will destroy your relationship with your family." "What family?" The words came out bitter. They told me I was never meant to inherit anything, that I was meant to stay out of the way. "That's not family, Mr. Crane. That's erasure." He nodded slowly, understanding settling in his features. "There's another option, a faster one, but it requires you to be willing to take a bold move, an aggressive move that will burn bridges you can never rebuild." "Tell me," he leaned forward. "The lakefront property your grandmother left you? Legally, the moment you turned 18, management authority should have transferred to you. Your parents never filed the proper paperwork for continued guardianship because they thought you'd never find out. That house is yours, Emily, right now, today, and you can do whatever you want with it." The idea formed in my mind like lightning, clear and bright and terrifying. "Sell it," I said. "I want to sell the house." He blinked. "You want to liquidate the entire property?" "Yes. Before they come back on Sunday. Can we do that in?" I checked my phone in less than 48 hours. "Emily, that's..." He stopped, studied my face. "You understand what you're asking. Your parents have been collecting rent on that property. They've built it into their financial projections. If you suddenly sell it out from under them, especially at market value with a quick sale, that will start a war." "Good," I whispered. "They declared war first. I'm just firing back." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, a small, sad smile that reminded me of my grandmother. "Your grandmother would have loved this. She always said you had more steel in your spine than anyone gave you credit for. Can you do it?" "I have a buyer who's been trying to purchase lakefront property in that area for 2 years. He'll move fast if the price is right. We can have papers drawn up by tonight, closing by tomorrow afternoon if we push hard enough." He paused. "But Emily, the moment this happens, everything changes. You'll need somewhere to go, money to live on. A plan. The sale money goes into an account only I can access." "Absolutely. Then that's my plan. I sell the house. I take the money, and I disappear before they can stop me." Mr. Crane stood up, gathered the documents, started making phone calls right there in my father's study. I listened to him negotiate, argue, push, demand. By 8 p.m. Friday night, we had a buyer. By midnight, we had a contract. By 2 p.m. Saturday afternoon, I was signing closing papers in Mr. Crane's office while my parents were schmoozing with developers in Boston, completely unaware that their daughter had just pulled the foundation out from under their carefully constructed empire. The house sold for $2.3 million. After taxes and fees, I'd walk away with just over $1.8 million. More money than I'd ever imagined having. Enough money to start over. Enough money to be free. But Sunday morning came, and I made a mistake. I didn't leave. I should have packed a bag and disappeared before they got home. But some part of me wanted to see their faces. Wanted them to know that the daughter they'd dismissed had teeth after all. At exactly 10:31 a.m., while I was sitting in the living room with my suitcase packed and Mr. Crane's number on speed dial, I heard cars pull into the driveway. Not one car, 3. I looked out the window and my stomach dropped. A black SUV, my father's Mercedes, Caleb's BMW. They weren't supposed to be home until evening. Someone had called them. Someone had told them. Doors slammed. Footsteps on the walkway. But it wasn't just my family. Judge Henry Wilcox emerged from the SUV, his face red with anger. Leonard Briggs, my father's business partner for 20 years, was right behind him. And then my parents. My mother looking like she might shatter glass with her glare. My father's jaw set in that way that meant someone was about to be destroyed. Caleb brought up the rear, but he wasn't smirking anymore. He looked scared. They stormed inside, didn't knock, just burst through the front door like an invading army. Judge Wilcox looked me dead in the eyes, and I saw something I'd never seen directed at me before from any of them. Not disappointment, not dismissal, fear. "What have you done?" His voice was shaking. My mother was on her phone, frantically calling someone. My father stood frozen in the doorway, staring at me like I was a stranger. Leonard Briggs was already on his phone too, probably calling their lawyers. Trying to figure out how to undo what couldn't be undone, I stood up, smoothed my shirt, and met Judge Wilcox's eyes with a calm I didn't know I possessed. I only said one thing. I took back what was mine. My parents returned that evening in a frenzy. Hours earlier than planned, their weekend retreat abandoned the moment they'd gotten the call. I heard the cars before I saw them. tires screeching on our quiet street like something out of a crime drama. But they weren't alone. Attorney Crane had prepared for this. He'd made calls, pulled strings, ensured that when my parents arrived, they'd walk into a situation already beyond their control. 2 police officers stood on our front lawn, not because anyone had committed a crime that required arrest, but because Mr. Crane had requested their presence to prevent any potential disturbance of the peace. A real estate broker I'd never met was sitting in our living room with a laptop, drafting final paperwork, confirming that the sale was legal, binding, and completely beyond reversal. My mother was the first through the door. Her face went from fury to confusion to something resembling terror when she saw the police officers, saw Mr. Crane standing beside me like a guardian, saw the broker calmly typing away on our couch. "Emily, stop this." Her voice cracked on my name. No, the word came out stronger than I expected. I'd practiced it in my head 1,000 times, but hearing it out loud felt like breaking through water after being held under too long. For 18 years, you planned my future without asking me. For 18 years, you wrote me out of my own family. You stole from me. You lied to me. You told me I was never meant to inherit anything, that I was meant to stay out of the way. Well, I'm done staying out of the way. My father pushed past her, his face purple with rage. You have no idea what you've done. That property was collateral. We have loans against projected rental income. You've just destroyed your financial planning. I finished for him. Good. Maybe you should have thought about that before you spent 12 years stealing from your own daughter. Caleb stepped forward, and for the first time in my life, I saw him look genuinely furious instead of smugly superior. You don't understand the deal we made. This isn't just about you and your feelings, Emily. There are bigger things at play here. What deal? I demanded. What are you talking about? The room went silent. My mother shot Caleb a look that could have killed. Judge Wilcox, who'd been standing by the door, suddenly became very interested in his shoes. My father's jaw worked like he was chewing words he couldn't spit out. Tell her, Mr. Crane said quietly. She has a right to know. My father looked at him with pure hatred. You have no right to be here, Crane. This is family business. Emily is my client, and this stopped being family business the moment you committed fraud. We committed no fraud, my mother said sharply, but her voice wavered. Then explain the deal, I said. Explain what Caleb means. Explain why I was never supposed to inherit anything from the moment I was born. My father's shoulders sagged. For the first time in my life, I saw him look old, defeated. When he spoke, his voice cracked. You were never supposed to inherit anything because the moment you were born. We arranged a guardianship structure with the Wilcox estate. It was the only way to secure the business. Henry's investment firm needed guarantees. Needed to know that the Hartman properties would be managed by someone with business acumen. Your grandmother was still alive then, and she refused to agree to the terms unless you were protected. So we told her you'd be taken care of, that there would be a trust. And then when she died, you took the money. I finished. You took everything she left me, and you spent it on Caleb, on the business. On yourselves. We invested it in the family's future, my mother said coldly. In the child who could actually handle responsibility. I was 6 years old when Grandma died. I was a child. And you decided then that I wasn't worth protecting. You were emotional, she snapped. You cried over everything. You didn't have the disposition for business. We made a practical choice. You made a choice that benefited you? Mr. Crane interjected. And now Emily has made a choice that benefits her. The property is sold. The money is in her account. And there's nothing you can do to reverse it. My father turned to the police officers. She's not mentally competent. She's always been unstable. This sale should be invalidated. One of the officers, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes, shook her head. Sir, unless you have legal documentation of mental incompetence filed with the court, your daughter is an adult who has every right to sell property that belongs to her. The lawyer here has verified the documentation. The sale is legal. This is theft. Leonard Briggs suddenly spoke up from the doorway. That property was part of our business portfolio. We have contracts. You have contracts based on property you didn't own, Mr. Crane said calmly. That's a problem you'll need to sort out amongst yourselves. The room erupted. My mother was on her phone again, calling their lawyers, her voice sharp and desperate. My father was arguing with the broker, demanding to see documents, trying to find a loophole that didn't exist. Caleb stood in the corner, his face pale, muttering about ruined projections and broken deals. And I just stood there, watching my family fall apart over money they'd never had a right to in the first place. The police officers eventually escorted them off the property when my father refused to leave. My mother's last words to me were, "You've destroyed this family, Emily. I hope you can live with that." I could, very easily as it turned out. Later that night, after everyone had gone, after the house was finally quiet, Mr. Crane handed me an old sealed packet. The envelope was yellowed with age, my name written across it in my grandmother's handwriting. Your grandmother left this for me to give you when you turned 18, he said quietly. Your mother intercepted it. Told me you'd already received it. I found it in my archives yesterday when I was pulling your case files. I think she meant for you to have this before everything happened. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter. Written in the careful script I remembered from birthday cards and Christmas notes. From a woman who'd loved me when no one else seemed to. My dearest Emily, it began. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and I can only hope that your parents have done right by you. But knowing my daughter as I do, I fear they haven't. Margaret has always been practical to the point of cruelty. She sees the world in numbers and dismisses anything that can't be quantified. You, my sweet girl, are everything that can't be quantified. You feel deeply. You see beauty. You have a conscience. You are the only Hartman with a conscience, and that makes you dangerous to them. I had to stop reading, wipe my eyes. Breathe, the letter continued. I have left you the lake house because it was the one place your grandfather and I were truly happy, and I want you to have that kind of happiness. Your parents will try to control it, to manage it, to take it from you. Protect yourself, Emily. One day they will try to erase you. Don't let them. You are worth more than they will ever admit. You are worth more than they can see. Be brave, be fierce, be free. The letter was dated 2 weeks before she died. At the bottom, beneath her signature, was one final line that made my blood run cold. They won't stop. Even if you win, I sold the house. Every inch of it. Took the money and disappeared before they could file injunctions or lawsuits or whatever legal warfare they were planning. I moved to Portland, Oregon, as far from Vermont as I could get without leaving the country. I changed my phone number. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I started a new life with a new name, opened a small art gallery, invested the rest of the money carefully, and learned what it felt like to breathe without the weight of their expectations crushing my chest. I'm 52 now. I haven't spoken to my family in decades. I don't know if my parents are still alive. I don't know what happened to Caleb or the business or the empire they'd built on stolen ground. I don't search for them online. I don't follow their social media. I erased them as thoroughly as they'd tried to erase me, or so I thought. 3 months ago, on a Tuesday morning at 6:04 a.m., I walked out to get my newspaper and found a plain manila envelope on my doorstep. No postage, no return address, hand-dash delivered. My new name was written on the front in black ink. The name I'd chosen, the name nobody from my old life should know. I took it inside with shaking hands, locked my door, checked my windows. Then I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No signature. No letterhead. Just one handwritten line in the center of the page. We're not finished. Emily, and beneath it, in handwriting I would recognize anywhere. The handwriting that had signed away my inheritance and called me emotionally volatile and told me I was never meant to matter. My mother's handwriting, family business never ends. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and called Mr. Crane, who's now 83 and technically retired but still answers when I need him. They found me, I said. I know, he replied. I got one too. Because some wars don't end with a single battle. Some families don't let go just because you walk away. And some legacies are curses you carry whether you want them or not. I don't know what they want. I don't know what they're planning. But I'm not 18 anymore. I'm not the frightened girl who discovered she'd been erased from her own family's future. I'm the woman who fought back once, and if I have to, I'll fight back again. The envelope sits on my desk now, a reminder that freedom isn't something you win once and keep forever. It's something you defend every single day against the people who think they own you. My name is Emily Hartman. I'm 52 years old, and my family business may never end, but neither will I. If my story keeps you hooked till the end, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next twist. Drop your thoughts in the comments and give this video a like. It helps more than you know.